Prepare for insight.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Ugins Insight. This is Jordan here from Oxford Magic, signing on and saying hello and how are you all doing? So this week's episode, I'm going to discuss two things. One is my new love of Pauper. My renewed love of Pauper. We're also going to discuss the standard metagame and some current thoughts I have on the current standard game, and some decks that I really think need reviewing. Shall we say reviewing? Let's say reviewing. Yes. So for those of you who obviously we are broadcasting on Podbean, we are also broadcasting as a vidcast via YouTube. So please make sure you do follow us via Podbean and also follow us on our YouTube channel. And yes, without further ado, we're going to get round to the discussions. So let's discuss the first one, which is Pauper. Pauper. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, Pauper is obviously possibly the best format, and I say that quite willingly. That it is probably the best format that Wizards has. Reasons why I feel like that is, of course, it's got no res. It has a very small ban list. Funnily enough, mostly around blue. Because, you know, apparently blue's a fair magic colour. Shock horror. But yeah, so Pauper is interesting. Basically, I've found a renewed love because, obviously being locked down, lots of things have moved to online gaming. And funnily enough, I found a Discord where people are playing Pauper as part of a monthly tournament. And yeah, I kind of went, well, you know, it's good for games. It's good to sort of play paper magic. And in New Zealand, Pauper isn't huge. Some people do have Pauper decks, but if I was to go down to my LGS, the chances of someone having a Pauper deck is probably, say about 5% chance. You know, it's not really big. Whereas Modern and probably EDH here is huge. So yeah, so I always know I'm guaranteed. If I take a Modern deck, I'm guaranteed to get a game. If I take an EDH deck, I'm guaranteed to get a game. But the chances of having someone with a Pauper deck is very slim. So normally, for those of you who obviously do follow the channel and obviously do know me quite well, I do tend to play my green-white slivers. It's my first Pauper deck. It's my, I don't want to say first love, you know, I built it purely for GP London when the prof came over, actually. And in fact, we interviewed him on our YouTube channel. God, that I feel so old all of a sudden thinking about it. But yeah, that was like possibly one of the best, probably one of my favourite days out. And getting to meet the prof was just awesome, and interviewing him was cool. But yeah, of course, he's a big lover of Pauper as well. He's done several deck techs for his channel, and I've also done several deck techs for Pauper decks. But I've really got back into it because obviously this monthly tournament, you know, funnily enough, the first month's tournament, I played my green white slivers. I won we were playing 4 games for round 1. I won all 4 games because one of the guys dropped out, so I went 2-0 automatically with him. But all the other games I went 2-1. I only lost out in my group for making the top 8 because another opponent got a better win percentage than me, and which was just, it was funny. We've had a little rivalry ever since, going, you know, one day I will have my vengeance and blah blah blah. So we've had some good fun together. And then, funnily enough, I was thinking, oh, maybe I should brew up a new Pauper deck, and you know, so I started going through my collection, pulling cards out and stuff like that. And of course, the next month rolled round, and I was like, well, you know what? I'll just run the same slivers deck because why not, sort of thing. And it's hilarious the difference a month makes. Because different pod, 4 games, lost every single one. I won a game in between each round, but yeah, I got, I don't want to say the word spanked, but you know, I got spanked, man. It's like, funnily enough, there was also another sliver player in my pod. He was playing Nair colour, and I was obviously in green white, and we had the opportunity to actually play against another slivers deck was awesome, because I've only ever played one game in all my years of playing Pauper, against another Sliver deck, and because it's hilarious how Slivers is known as being part of the meta, you know, because there are Sliver decks around, but it's the funny thing is that the people are like, oh, so there is a Sliver there's a Sliver deck in the pod, cool, but the chances of having 2 Sliver pods in a deck is like hilarious, and it was just great. We had a great banter. We were on the call for at least an hour, and our game finished within 30 minutes, but we were discussing strategies, the benefits of green-white versus Nair, and blah, blah, blah. We discussed it to death. It was really good fun. But yeah, so of course I lost my second pod, and I was like, right, okay, I am going to build another deck. I'm going to build another deck. And I did have another deck in mind, which revolved around, obviously, when Commander Legends came out, because Pauper uses any card that gets turned into a common. And one of my favourite cards, funnily enough, from Dominaria, was Champion of the Flame. I love Champion of the Flame. I thought it was brilliant. I could never, ever make it work outside of Limited. And even then in Limited, you had to get enough cards to sink into it to make it the biggest of boys. But it was just interesting. And I thought, well, actually, funnily enough, when Commander Legends came out, Champion of the Flame got downgraded from uncommon to common. And I was like, oh, okay. Also, with Commander Legends, we got a load of new Monarch cards. And I was like, oh, okay. So I could fix my card draw, because I could have, you know, the Champion of the Flame. I could run the Commodore Fleet Commander. Is it Commodore Fleet Commander? The red guy who's going to give us, obviously, a Monarch, and we can draw from that way. And there's plenty of nice, sweet spells, and the Benevolent Blessing as well is a great protection spell. So, anyway, so I've brewed up a new deck. I'm looking forward to trying out in this month's upcoming month. We're at the end of the month as I'm recording this, so the new month will be starting next month. So obviously I'll keep you updated on how we do with that. But funnily enough, I've kind of gone a bit overboard, because when I was finding some cards, I've kind of found lots of other decks I wanted to build. I found a very old Pauper deck that I'd begun to construct, and I was missing a couple of cards, and funnily enough I found them when I was searching on various websites. So it was kind of very interesting to... Suddenly I've bought like loads of Pauper staples so I can build lots of decks. So that's interesting. It also shows a big sign of addiction. But anyway, so yeah, Pauper as a format, obviously I highly recommend that if you want to get into Pauper, I mean, I will link in the vidcast and the Podbean description. I'll link the Discord link to this to this group. It's good fun. I highly recommend it. And yeah, it's great just to be able to play live and actually interact with people. You know, about to say most of the guys are obviously in the States. There's lots of Europeans in this Discord as well, so it's quite good with timings wise. And yeah, I'm about to say we've had lots of fun games, and it's good, and there's a good bunch of guys, and yeah, it's just nice to be able to play a bit more paper Magic. Because don't get me wrong, I love Arena, and we're going to be discussing Standard in a minute, because that's where I play my Standard fix. But I just love real cards, man. Just flicking cards, just playing out. It's always great fun. So yeah. So without further ado, obviously, I would ramble on about Pauper and all the varieties of decks that I'm building, and I probably will do a deck tech on the one that I have brewed, but obviously I don't want to give any secrets away. Don't want to give the secrets away before we get a chance to play the bad boy. I have goldfished it to death, and theoretically it works like a dream. But we all know that the Magic gods like to make sure that your shuffles are horrific and various things like that. So I'm very interested to actually play it against another real person. But anyway, without further ado, let's switch over to our next subject, which is the standard metagame at the moment, and what is going on. Standard metagame. Where to begin with the standard metagame? Obviously, before Strixhaven came out, obviously I would say probably the one deck that was dominating everything was Dimir Rogues. There was various brews of it, but they all pretty much followed the same thing, which was, milling you out essentially for maximum value. And yeah, that deck's still around. I haven't seen it as much because there is a bit more hate towards it now. You've got things obviously like the Strict Proctor and various other things that can affect it, as well as there's plenty more removal in the format to help you deal with specific pieces. So Dimir Rogues is still there, but it's not as bad. And about to say, I'm obviously using MTG Goldfish, as you can probably tell from the lovely picture I'll have displayed on my side here. For those of you who are watching the vidcast, they say that the meta is currently 7.4% of Dimir Rogues, which I can agree with. I do run into it on the rank ladder. Not as often as I did last season at the moment, but yeah, it is still there. Probably the next deck I'm going to speak about, which is Sultai Control. Yeah, this deck I see obnoxiously a lot at the moment on the rank ladder. It is horrific. Basically, for those of you who aren't aware of the deck, basically it's using Yorion mainly, so that you've got lots of extra cards in your library to combat the mill effect. And basically all it does is have control pieces built into the deck. Probably the main way is basically they want to ramp up to get Eerie Ultimatum off, and with that they can get 3 cards from their library, which pretty much is always generally Tybalt, because you can cast him for free once if it's not selected. Alrund's Epiphany, so they get an extra turn, and probably Kiora Best the Sea Gods, or whatever it's called, the massive saga that gives you an 8/8 and various things like that. And the main body of the build kind of varies from person to person. Like some people put the Eski's Chariot in there to double the tokens and blah blah blah, and some people just have a hell of a lot of counter or a hell of a lot of board removal or targeted removal. So it kind of varies, but they all revolve around the same theme, which is I'm going to ramp up, cast Eerie Ultimatum, and then go off. And that's their big plan. That is all they're doing. And I kind of hate it. Don't get me wrong, it's kind of like, when Companions first came out in I've forgotten the name of the set now, Ikoria. When Ikoria came out and we saw Companions, we were all like, oh my god, cool. This looks like an awesome mechanic. Obviously they had to fix it, because being able to cast like Yorion for 5 mana and blah 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 and all this jazz. The fact is I do agree with the changed mechanic that they've done for Companion, which is you got to pay 3 to put it into hand, and then you've got to cast it, because I think that Wizards thought, oh, it's going to be fine. It's not going to be too broken. But having Lurrus, turn 3, and then you just get constant value out of Lurrus is just, it's just sickening. But it's, one thing I find about Sultai Control is that you've either going to win or you're going to lose. And you can generally tell within the first 5 turns. If you're able to establish a board presence, and you're able to start getting in plenty of damage, and they are struggling to keep up with removal pieces or countering stuff, you will win the game. Pretty straightforward. If you get them down to low enough life total, then kind of, all you need is 1 or 2 creatures and they can't do anything. They struggle is what I find. But more than enough, it's one of those things that when you play an arena, of course you know that you got your opening hand. You can see it. If you want, you can look at the battlefield to see if your opponent is running a companion. I don't do that. I forget 3/4 of the time that I am able to look across the deck, look across the screen, shall we say, to see what my opponent's roughly running, see if they've got a companion or something of that nature, and do something. And it's kind of one of those, and it should be down to me to do that, but whenever I see Yorion, I'm just like, oh, wrong hand, or it's all right, okay, I've now got to sequence things very carefully, because 1, I do want to get damage in, or 2, I need to go wide. It depends on the deck that I'm running. At the moment in the rank ladder, I'm running 2 decks. One of them is called Wanderings. Wandering. What is it? Wandering. No, the Wandering. That's what I call it. It's built around Wandering Archaic and Ugin. It's very much on the. I don't want to say mono black control, because it's not using, apart from spells, it's not actually casting any black creatures, but basically it's ramping up and controlling the board as best it can and stuff like that. But with that deck against Yorion, it's hit or miss whether it's going to work, and it is very much hit or miss. But beyond that, the other deck that I've been playing that has really helped me ranked up, funnily enough, is is Golgari Elves. Obviously, with Golgari Elves hasn't had much improvement with Strixhaven coming out. But damn, it doesn't have to work. It's pretty sweet. I mean, I could probably tweak it a little bit to maybe go Jund and run things like the what is it? First day of class. So suddenly you're getting haste on your tokens and stuff like that. That'd be cool. But honestly, just running it as bog standard Golgari is pretty good. And a lot of decks, yes, they have plenty of removal, but it gets out of hand very quickly, and the fact that you got graveyard recursion as well messes up some decks as well, so it's kind of very hit or miss whether it works or not. So yeah, so in terms of Sultai control, I think it's obnoxious. I can't stand it. But then again, that's just, everyone likes some decks and some people really don't like some decks, and I just think that Sultai control is a very obnoxious deck to play. But that is my personal opinion. Not everyone, obviously. Some people will happily argue that, no, it's a sweet deck and blah, 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 which is fine. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. If you do have an opinion on any of this, I would be interested to hear it in the comments. Certainly. That's going to be quite sweet to get that debate going. I envision just a whole page of people going, yeah, but we'll see what comes out. Probably the next deck, obviously, Monorail Aggro. It is what it is. Monorail Aggro, let's be honest, it does one thing, which is it's going to cast creatures, they're going to turn sideways, and it's going to try and burn you out within 5 turns, I reckon. Yeah, probably 5 turns. They probably aim for a turn 5 win most of the time. And to be fair, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You can't get around it. The fact is, that's what the deck does. So, I'm never going to be mad against Monorail Aggro. If I lose to Monorail Aggro, it's like, yep, sure, didn't have enough removal. Oh, didn't have enough creatures. Oh, didn't have it, It is, you can't do anything about it. So, the fact is, you just got to deal with it more than anything. So, Monorail Aggro doesn't really bother me. I kind of expect it. It's generally a very simple deck to run, and in fact, Monorail Aggro has, realistically, it's been around now. How many sets has it been around for? It's been, 4, 5 sets? No, 4 sets. I think 4 sets. Obviously, since when we went back to Ravnica, with War of the Spark and stuff like that, and we had, and when we had, when they were gaining 3 mana, and then experimental, experimental overload, or whatever it was, and blah, blah, blah. The fact is they were able to do stuff with it. It's always good. What's the next on our list? Temur Ramp. It's funnily enough, I haven't seen Temur Ramp. I've not seen it on any part of the rank ladder. I've got a feeling it's higher up. Right now I'm at what? I'm at Platinum 2. Yeah, am I Platinum? Yeah, Platinum 2. So if I get into Diamond, I might see Temur Ramp, but it'll be interesting. Jeskai Cycling, I do see. Obviously, the cycling deck, it's hilarious. If you are a cycling deck, if you're the cycling deck and you come up against the Rogues deck, yeah. all they're doing is helping you. In fact, all they've got to do is try and keep you off your white mana. If you can keep you off the white mana and keep you off 4 lands, they will win, but it's a big struggle. So cycling does what it does. It's very hit or miss, but you can tend to win. I do get wins in at the moment when I've seen it on the ladder, because of course they require a lot of setup, and if they haven't got the right cards in hand, because a lot of the time they keep a hand knowing the fact that it's 2 lands, and I'm going to be cycling, and that's fine, because that's pretty much what they want to do. They do want to cycle. They do want to, they just want to fast film the graveyard. And of course, they don't have a lot of interactive pieces. So if you start flooding the board, like with the Golgari Elves that I'm running, if you flood the board, suddenly they're like, uh-oh, now we're in trouble. Because suddenly they need to play creatures and then block and defend, and, it makes it a lot harder for them. Quickly on the list, Winona. All right, yeah. Let's begin with the Winona deck. Now, I haven't seen this yet. I haven't versed it, but I've actually seen this played in paper at my LGS. And I went over and I was having a look and I was like, oh, cool. And then he played Winona. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, sure. Winona was strong. What? Ooh. Yeah, Ikoria. It was strong in Ikoria. It was still a bit round in Kaldheim, but it wasn't massive. Oh, it was okay. It was still around in Zendikar. Kaldheim came out and was like, oh, it's not really played anymore. But now it's back. And the reason why it's back in Strixhaven is because of Blade Historian. Because Blade Historian says that whenever attacking creatures you control gain double strike. And of course, the Winona trigger on the stack means that creatures are coming in and they are tapped and attacking, which means that if Blade Historian's also out and you find it with the Winona trigger, you're getting double strike damage, and it is busted. It is hilarious how everyone's seen Blade Historian. It was like, it's not that good, and it agreed. But when you tie it up with Winona, it is really busted. It's insane how good it is. So it's kind of one of those interesting things. 1 second. Parcels for my son for his birthday. Lucky boy. Right. Wait. Blade Historian. So yeah, it was amazing when Blade Historian was spoiled. No one was raving about it and all that jazz, but I think it took very quickly when someone saw it with the possibilities with Winona that it took over. And yeah, and I kind of agree with that, and it kind of works out really cool. Let's see, where's that next? Well, I'm only doing the top 10 here, but I mean, I could probably discuss everything because I've probably seen most of them, but we're only going to do the top 10. Prismari mid-range. I've actually got no problem with Prismari mid-range. In fact, the only version I have a problem with is... No, it's not the Prismari. What is it? It's the Lawhold Dragon combo thingy where you're filling up the graveyard with the dragon, the deals 3 damage, and if there's 4, get a free dragon, and that's a deck I have a bit of an issue with because I feel like that's way overpowered. But that's my personal opinion. But yeah, Prismari mid-range I find is quite fair. Yes, they run counters. Yes, they run removal. Yes, they just want to get Goldspan Dragon down, and the Prismari dude, the Prismari Dragon. I can't remember his name now, but So I find Prismari midrange is a acceptable deck. Nair Adventures is still around. Why? Of course it is, because it won't go anywhere realistically. The fact is, Nair Adventures can do what it wants. It can draw plenty of cards. It can do removal. It can flood the board. So Nair Adventures will always be a thing. And Lovestruck Beast is probably the core of that deck. The fact that you can get a 5/5 is pretty good for 3 mana. It's just insane. Next one is Mono White Aggro. I'll tell you now, it's funny because the meta here says it's only 4.1%. Obviously, this is the last 7 days. I'll tell you now, I guarantee you this meta percentage is wrong, because the amount of mono white aggro I find. I mean, obviously this is round the probably the one that they've got is probably the very 1-2 mana drop and all that jazz. Whereas I'm thinking of the one with the one I see probably a lot more is with the Angels, the Valkyrie, and it gets hilariously bad once they get beyond a certain amount of life and they're gaining tons, and then they get more Angels and blah blah blah. And yeah, it mono white aggro is powerful, but it is very weak to removal. If you pick off certain things, generally, obviously they play things like Selfless Savior, and the 1 mana enchantment dude who can give protection as well. But the problem is that once they've got them out, it's like, oh, okay. But if you start picking things off and they're using them up and they're having to save stuff in there and it works out. And to be fair, if you're playing in best of 3 and you've got, Shadow's Verdict in the sideboard, generally casting that once wrecks their day. Because suddenly it's like, oh, you've exiled all their board. Oh, and you've exiled all their graveyard as well. So even if they draw a late game, even if they draw a Lurrus next turn, they're getting no value out of it, and it is huge. I mean, the only card you got to really worry about is Seasoned Hollowblade a lot of the time, because you can give that thing indestructible, and it's just a pain in the butt. But in terms of everything, it is kind of a fair deck, and it is kind of, but it's a very much a the lack of a better term, a Rock'em Sock'em deck, as you know, with like Rock'em Sock'em robots, where it's just you're bashing each other a lot of the time. You know, you're just going up head to head, and it is interesting as a deck goes. I've built a variation of it myself and tried it out, and it's all right. But the problem is when you come up against, oh, it's hilarious when you come up against another mono white aggro deck. And then it's coming down to is, right, who's going to win this race? Which is just, oh, Lord. The amount of times that you're just going, oh, my Lord, this is terrible. Because you are literally spending, you're getting up to ridiculous amounts of life, and you're having to find an opportunity to swing in, and you have to find removal pieces to deal with certain things. And it's like, oh, you just get headaches looking at it and just trying to work out what the line of play is. And I think I ended up having one game on Standard Arena, and it took an hour to play a 1-round best of 3, which is obviously standard. If you're at a tournament and you're going to play a round, it's an hour long anyway. So you've acted, but you kind of get into this mindset now with Arena that, sweet, I want to play some Arena. Most games take roughly 15 minutes. Because you do. Most games do take really quick, because obviously Arena's helping resolve the triggers and doing this and doing that, and so you kind of know what you're doing. But it's hilarious when you get two grindy decks like that and they go up against each other and you're trying to find any answer or anything to help, and it's just, it gets out of hand more than anything. So Mono White Aggro I don't mind, but yeah, it is a bit weak to certain things of removal. And last one that is showing here is the Gruul Adventures. They're pretty much the same as Nair Adventures, except it doesn't splash white. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think Gruul Adventures is just as good. I mean, is there anything else on this list that looks pretty good? I mean, no, everything else is pretty much. Oh yeah. Oh, hang on. We should probably discuss Rectus Sacrifice. They've got it as BGX Sacrifice. They've got it listed as, which is 2.5. I'll tell you now, I see the Rectus deck in Platinum rank more than any, about as much as Yorion. Now, it is a pain in the butt, and it is. It is a big pain in the butt to deal with, because the fact is they're making you discard, they're stealing your stuff, they've got death touches, they've got plenty of removal, and I mean plenty of removal. And it is interesting to play against, but they have got some very specific pieces that they struggle to fight against. If you've got any form of graveyard hate, they really struggle, and all you have to do is sideboard in. A lot of the time is the Shadow's Verdict if you're running black, and that just wrecks a lot of their strategy. The other day I did verse one with a, what was it? It had Carrion Grub? No, it was Carrion Grub. So it comes in, it mills 4, and Carrion Grub's power is equal to the greatest power among creatures in the graveyard. And yeah, it's great, because obviously they have a Croxer in the graveyard, so it's 6/4. And it's like, sweet. But the problem is then, if you could just remove the Croxer, it's like, oh, it's now a 2/4. Like, whereas if it got the total power or something daft like that, it would be OP and it would be really sweet. But yeah, it just doesn't work. So it is interesting to see the Rectus Sacrifice. Obviously, the lists tend to vary, but the one I see a lot of is that it tends to be pure Rectus. But they also do run that, Immerstrom Predator from Zendikar. So they got a lot of value out of that as well, which is quite cool. So anyway, I think we'll leave it there. I don't want to, because I could discuss my opinion of Standard forever. And obviously this episode is a bit different. I did originally I've been getting a guest arranged, and it didn't work out timings-wise for this episode. Hopefully it works out timings-wise for next one. But if not, I will have worst-case scenario, it will be the one after. That we have a guest on the show, which is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. It was my first time having a guest on the new rebooted show, so that's going to be cool. So yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who has been following and listening to the podcast. Like, I get lots of comments and lots of people get in touch, which is cool. As I say, if you could do me a favour and follow us on Podbean, that's always helpful. If you could also let me know of if there's anything you want to discuss, or is anything you want to, or if there's any particular people you want me to get onto the show, let me know. I've had a couple of suggestions and I've put a few feelers out, and some people have come back to me, and some people have said no, and some people have just ignored me, which is fine. But yeah, it's hilarious from collaboration discussion that we had last time, which was interesting. Without further ado, I'm just going to leave it there for the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure as always to everyone. Obviously, please stay safe, please enjoy yourselves, and yeah, come check us out on if you fancy playing some Pauper and you want to play some sweet, awesome, powerful magic. Get yourselves onto the Discord and let's play some games. It's going to be cool. Thank you very much for joining us. I've been your host, Jordan, here from Orcside Magic, providing commentary for Ugins Insight. Signing off. Goodbye.